With the largest earthen conical burial mound in North America, a historic penitentiary beside of it, and the nation's center for the Hare Krishna movement, I'm Wayne Worth, and you're watching On the Road, West Virginia, our 55 counties, Marshall County. Marshall County was created in 1835 and named after Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, John Marshall, who probably never stepped foot in what is today Marshall County. But hey, he was a very popular dude back in his time and left his mark in American history. However, there were a group of people who did leave their mark on what is today Marshall County, and when I say left their mark, I literally mean left their mark. Standing 69 feet high and 295 feet in diameter, and containing 57,000 tons of earth, which archaeologists speculate that it took 3 million basket loads of earth to construct it, I present to you the Grave Creek Mound. When excavated, it was suggested that the mound was built around 200 BC. Of course, if you took Rocks for Jocks 101 in college, which is mainly an introductory course in geology, this would be referred as the early woodland period, and the people who had inhabited this region were referred to as the Adena people, who were known for their mound building capabilities. The Adena people, or mound builders as many historians call them, constructed these colossal bumps in the earth as burial mounds for their dead. Now later on down the road, many white settlers started to settle in what we call present-day Marshall County, starting with John Wetzel and his family in 1769. They greatly depended on Fort Henry and Wheeling for protection against the Native Americans and British allies. This was 1774, and both the natives and British were not very fond of colonial settlers at this time and were willing to take extraordinary measures such as death by gunfire or death by scalping as a means of "you're not welcome here," or as a means of "you're welcome here but you need to pay taxes to the crown." Now of course that was contingent on who was trying to kill you. Anyway, the early white settlers prevailed because they were victorious in the French and Indian War and the Revolutionary Wars, and when the completion of the B&O Railroad from Baltimore to Wheeling occurred in 1852, things started to really take off. The economy boomed and industrial activity along the Ohio River in Marshall County began in Benwood with iron making in the 1850s. That was eventually surpassed by steel making, and the Benwood Works grew into large steel mills by 1900. The production of lumber, coal, coke, and limestone also developed into important industries in the Benwood area. As for Moundsville, the industries were a little bit more on the light side, as they produced bricks, building supplies, and glassware, with Fostoria Glass being a major producer of high-quality tableware for over 100 years. The first half of the 20th century was much of the same as Marshall County became a major player in manufacturing of products such as pottery, well drilling tools for the early gas boom, and other metal products. Heck, even Lewis Marks & Company opened the world's largest toy plant in 1934 in Glendale, West Virginia, home to this cool dude, which employed 800 people during the 1970s. But with growth this fast and at that type of magnitude also came occupational hazards and sometimes tragedy. On April 28, 1924, at Benwood's Wheeling Steel coal mine, there was an explosion and 119 men perished in the blast. Now, I've talked a lot about the Ohio River Valley of Marshall County, but one community way out in US 250 that has literally stood the test of time is this community, Cameron, West Virginia. The town really took off when business leaders in the community went to Baltimore and convinced the B&O Railroad to run a line through town. That happened in 1852, and stave and wood factories along with flour mills started popping out of the woodwork. The 1880s brought the first gas boom to Cameron, which spawned manufacturing in drilling tools, pottery, and glass. However, in 1896, downtown caught on fire and every building was destroyed. Cameron has survived though over the years, mainly due to the natural gas industry. But like many isolated towns across our state, they have turned into unique historical relics. And we could not end the story of Cameron without pointing out that they had the coolest beach-style pool in the country, which by the way was a PWA project during the Great Depression. Now just up the road a piece is a community called New Vrindavan, which is known as the largest Hare Krishna community in America. Now many of you are probably like, what's Hare Krishna and Krishna consciousness? Krishna is a name of the Supreme. It means all attractive. Anything that might attract you has its source in the Supreme. Therefore, the Supreme is also known as Rama. Rama means the highest eternal pleasure. Now, according to the Hare Krishna faith, all of us are pleasure-seeking creatures, so you can say that directly or indirectly we are all seeking Krishna. Chanting Hare Krishna is a way of seeking Krishna directly. As for the word Hare, pronounced Hare, it's a call to Krishna's divine energy, just as the sun sets forth to us through its energies like heat and light. Krishna consciousness is believed to already be inside of each of us, waiting to come out like a fire in a match, and chanting Hare Krishna brings out that natural pure state of mind. Okay guys, I gave it my best. However, if you still don't quite know what Hare Krishna or the Krishna consciousness is, make a trip to the Palace of Gold. Yes, this palace whose dome is covered with 24-karat gold leaf, and inside the floors and walls are made with dozens of marble from 17 different countries. They give tours and can definitely educate you better than me. Now, one can't tell the story of Marshall County without mentioning the West Virginia Penitentiary in Moundsville. It all began when we became a state in 1863. We had no prison in our state, and I'm sure Virginia was very eager to take some of our convicts. Said no one ever. So to alleviate crowding in the county jails, Governor Arthur Borman in 1864 ordered convicted felons throughout the state to be imprisoned in the Ohio County Jail and asked the state legislature for funds to construct a new penitentiary. In 1866, the legislature appropriated $50,000 and 5 acres across the street from the Grave Creek Mound were acquired for construction of the main prison. Finally, in 1867, the penitentiary opened its doors, and 840 cells were devoted to men, and only 32 were devoted to women, which proves that us men usually get in more trouble than women. Now, legend has it that Moundsville was given the choice between the penitentiary and a new state university, which would later be called WVU, and chose the prison behind us as a more promising institution. Well, newsflash, the penitentiary has been closed since 1995, and WVU has an enrollment of about 30,000 and plays in the Big 12 Conference. I wonder who won that bet. To make a long story short, by the 1940s and 50s, overcrowding was an issue. A new women's state prison was being built in Penn Springs, West Virginia, and in 1959 the size of the state penitentiary doubled with the completion of a section that had been under construction for nearly 30 years. In the end, overcrowding persisted and tension increased with the number of prisoners. Deadly riots ensued in 1973 and 1986, which led to the state Supreme Court to order the penitentiary's closing in 1995. What is interesting to note that in its 119-year history, 104 people were executed at the prison, 85 by hanging and 19 by electrocution. Even the infamous Charles Manson wrote a letter to the warden at Moundsville requesting permission to be transferred there. Of course, that transfer was rejected. Today, the prison is mainly open for tours where you can see an occasional ghost or two, and that's Marshall County. For 2,200 years, this has been a place for every type of person. I'm Wayne Worth, and until next time, remember, what we value and hold true in our lives today came from events that happened yesterday. And it's when we begin to understand the events of yesterday that we fully embrace today, which makes tomorrow become less of a mystery.